So the first reason why we're hosting this conference is Africa is indeed having lots of security challenges, especially challenges around terrorism and insurgency and lots of organized crimes. And countries have rolled out measures to deal with these security challenges. But the concern about that is that while we acknowledge that those measures are very necessary in light of the heightened risk, in light of the fatalities, the consequences of the actions of activities of criminal elements, but it is important that those measures are enforced in ways that do not restrict or curtail civic freedom, in ways that do not securitize the environment, in ways that make it even livability difficult. Because you're trying to solve another problem, then you create another problem. And one of the sectors suffering or impacted by some of these countermeasures are the civil society sector, which largely under the umbrella of non-profit organizations. So there are lots of sentiments across governments that suggest that NPOs may be vulnerable to either money laundering or terrorism financing. So that has caused government to increase the measures that they have rolled out to tame the threats that they've seen in the non-profit sector. The essence of this conversation is to look at the evidence, to look at the different practices of countries across West Africa, to say, are there better ways of doing this thing? Are there better ways of enhancing the integrity of financial systems? Are there better ways of improving national security while at the same time protecting civic freedoms? So that is why we're having this conversation, to see how countries can strike that healthy balance that is needed between security and protection of civic freedoms. Today, the first is hosted by the NPOs themselves, the non-profit organizations themselves, coming out to share their experiences about how these risks are impacting how the threats and how the countermeasures are impacting the operations. The second was hosted by the regulators, the regulators, that is the law enforcement bodies regulating the non-profit organizations across Africa, where government agencies are looking at how they are regulating the sector, understanding the areas where they fell short and areas of good practice that needs to be scaled up. The third masterclass was organized by financial institutions, which are gatekeepers of the terrorism financing measures. Yeah. And what that means is that the way they are also implementing their measures, the way they open accounts, the way they manage and surveil and monitor accounts,